Hi guys, this is Pestily and welcome to another Escape from Tarkov video. Today I'm talking about something that's been implemented in another game to help combat cheaters and lighten the burden of when you die to them. So without further ado, let's crack straight into it. So first up, I know there's been a lot of talk about cheaters over the years, and it's not just another big spiel about how they're an issue and all that. We know all that stuff. What I want to talk about today is a thing that the Cycle Frontier has implemented to help lighten the punishment that you receive every time you die from a cheater. Now, we all know games like Escape from Tarkov, the Cycle Frontier, and another game like Marauders, every time you die, you actually physically lose something. When you die in a game like Call of Duty or Apex Legends, whilst it might suck that you died and you lost, and you have to re-queue in, maybe you lost a little bit of rank, you ultimately don't actually lose anything. Whereas in Escape from Tarkov and these other games, you actually lose stuff. And it's a very punishing blow, particularly to players that aren't very good and they don't know if they die to a cheater or if it's just someone that's better than them. And it's one of those things that really, it turns people off the game, if anything. If you die to a cheater enough time, you'll stop playing the game and then the player base dies off, which is not what we want. We love this game. We want people to play it forever, right? So the thing that Cycle Frontier has actually implemented is if someone gets banned, the people that they have killed get their gear back. It sounds like a beautiful thing, right? So let me dive into what they actually do. I asked some of their developers what the actual process is and all the questions I had about it. And I'll go over that stuff. And then I'll go into how I think at least Escape from Tarkov should implement it into Escape from Tarkov. And hopefully they can do this very quickly because I think it'd be a beautiful thing to have in the game. The first question I asked was, how does the actual gear return system work as a whole? So what that happens is when people deploy into a game on the Cycle Frontier, it will take an actual snapshot of their gear. It'll save that information and put it aside. Then later, if someone was to die to someone was a cheater and that cheater was to get banned, it would actually take all those snapshots of all those gears as people deployed and then send all that gear back to them over a period of time. It has a delayed system in place. I'm guessing that's to make it so they don't just have to give back like 300 people's kit in a second and then lag the system. It actually does some sort of queue system, but ultimately that's the bare bones of the actual system itself. I asked them about what were the limitations of the system, and they spoke about the data limitation. So they could only really do the snapshots of when people deploy. Eventually they want to make it that when the person dies, they actually want to get a snapshot of that. But because of how much information that would need to be stored to do that, it's actually kind of unfeasible or untenable to do it right now. That's the way they want to progress in the actual system later on. But their ultimate goal is to actually try and return as many people's gear as possible and be able to keep that backlog as far as back as possible. So then, you don't actually feel that burden of, oh, I died to someone that was bullshit and then now I have to suffer from it. So eventually you can actually get some of that stuff back. And one of the questions I needed to ask, particularly for Cycle Frontier, which is a free-to-play game, is how do you avoid people using this to exploit the game? Now, they said that they couldn't really go into the details of what they use as methods to prevent the exploitation of, duping effectively. But for games that aren't free to play, this probably wouldn't be as much of a problem. However, I will put in fact that they do actually have some systems in place to help prevent people using it as a dupe system. But overall, for a game like Escape from Tarkov or Marauders, where you actually have to pay for the game, it would actually make it a little bit less feasible to do it that way. Now, the one question I asked that I thought would actually be kind of more the tricky question for them to answer is there an issue with the system exposing how many cheaters there are? Now, I'm just going to read out their response because I thought it was worded fairly well. Honestly, not really. This system only goes out to players who were already killed by a cheater. So there is a good chance that anybody benefiting from it was already aware of cheaters in the game. If anything, we've been quite happy with the message that has been sent to players. Before compensation existed, players had no way of really knowing if a cheater that killed them got banned or not. And many of our players believed we weren't doing anything about the issue. With this system in place, it is now much more visible whenever a cheater gets banned. And at least from what I have seen, that seems to bring some comfort to our players to know that something is being done behind the scenes. So personally, I think that's actually pretty brilliant. The fact that, it's actually a visible way that you can see that they're actually doing something against cheaters. And on top of that, they're actually getting some of their gear back, which is nice. It helps soften the blow of when you die to someone that was bullshit. Now, for Escape from Tarkov, this is the game I play primarily, and I love it, and I'm very passionate about it. For Escape from Tarkov, I don't think it'd be as simple. Like, for example, if they were to take a snapshot of all your gear when you go in, there's so many mods and attachments, it would actually be very difficult, in my opinion, to keep all that data as small as possible. So I think there's probably two methods in which they would do it. First method is they take the snapshot of all the items that you had when you went in, and then they just straight up do the value of all those items to vendor. Now, I'm not talking the sell value of those items. I'm talking the buy value. So for example, if you were to sell a slick to Ragman, you get 250K, but if you were to buy it, it's probably worth like 350, 400K. So they go, all right, that loadout's worth 700,000 rubles. Well, if you were to die to a cheater, you would get 700,000 rubles back. That's option number one. Option number two would obviously take a lot more resources to manage, but they would have to take a screenshot. And I would say, don't include all the consumables like ammunition and meds and all that. Take that as part of the L, but you know, just do the actual snapshot of the gear itself, all the armors and the rig and all that kind of stuff. And then just get a snapshot of all that stuff from the gun and then make it so that gets compensated in a message back from the system. Now, personally, do I think BSG is going to implement something like this? I don't know. I kind of, at first thought they probably wouldn't bother, but I actually think they should have already done this. I think this should actually be a mandatory thing for a game like Escape from Tarkov, Marauders when that game comes out, and the Cycle's already done it, all right? Just think about it. This is literally the most punishing first-person shooter games you can play. Like any of those other games like Apex, Call of Duty and all that, yeah, it sucks. Like no shit, it does suck when you die to a cheater, but this is actually something where you actually lose a lot of your time and effort. You went out, you spent a whole hour farming all this money to get this awesome loadout, and you go into a raid and some guy's zooming around and just shoot you from across the map, and you literally didn't even get to use that fun loadout that you spent an hour or two farming. That is really punishing, right? And I think this is a beautiful method. This is a beautiful way that there's some sort of compensation. And on top of that, you actually get to see how many people that you died to got banned because you'd get that gear back and you'd be like, wow, there is so many people cheating. Although no, there's not. Or at least that death that I thought was a cheater wasn't a cheater, or maybe that person never got banned. I don't know. Personally, like I said, do I think BSG would do this? I don't know. Probably, I'm gonna be honest, I don't think they will, but I hope they do. It'd be a beautiful thing that if they would, because if I had to pick between this and, I don't know, coding in 100 AKs, I'd probably say this, to be honest. And I think this is just a really awesome thing. I don't know if the AK people coding would be the same people coding this. So probably the wrong example. But for me, this is just something I thought I would share with you guys. I give you all the information that I know. And I think over time, if we could get something like this into the play, it would actually probably curve a lot of people back towards the game that get frustrated by dying to cheaters, because, or at least help prevent the amount of people leaving the game when they do die to cheaters. Because you die to a cheater, or if you're not sure if you do or not, a lot of people are like, damn it, this game's too plague infested. It might just be the fact that it was lag, desync, or whatever. I'm not going to go into details about all that stuff, but this is at least something. All right, guys, that's all I've got left for this topic. Over the next couple of weeks, I've got some pretty big videos coming out. Last week, I just had the Lada face shield come out, or the turning killer into a car video. On top of that, I have the Ultimate Gaming Chair Air Edition, where it literally goes skydiving with a gaming chair. It's a nuts video. It's actually a lot of fun. And we put out that raft video, which you guys really liked. Trying to make as much fun content with what I'm doing from now on. If you're really interested in Tarkov content, a lot of it goes up on the Pestily TV channel, Raid series, hardcore series, and some other videos. And there will be more gaming videos coming out on this channel. Appreciate you taking the time to listen to this video. Make sure you like and comment for the YouTube algorithm. Subscribe to keep up to date with whatever I'm doing. Lastly, I'll see you next time.